Hi everybody, my name is Brian Fadouk. I've been teaching the Python programming language for probably close to 14 years now, so I wanted to start creating a simplified and straightforward YouTube series that basically covers the foundations of programming. Now, you are not going to go and take this course and create the next Call of Duty overnight. That's usually a long and complicated process. However, if you want to start learning about code, even to just get a basic understanding of how the magic technology in our lives works, this course is exactly for you. We're going to start with extremely basic things, such as simply making our program say hello, make it kind of react to things, learn some math, just some basic ideas to see how the ebbs and flow of a programming language work. And by the end of this entire course, you will have all of the skills to build a slot machine game. So let's kind of dive in. Let's just work at the absolute basic beginner aspects of this, and let's just have some fun writing some code. All right. So I'm using an online coding editor called Trinket. It's pretty easy to use. It's pretty fun. It's pretty easy. You'll enjoy kind of playing around with something like this. You're more than welcome to use other types of online sources or even install Python natively onto your computer. That's a separate conversation, but for the scope of this course, we're going to use Trinket from beginning to end. All right. So let's just start with the absolute basics of what do we do to make sure a program works and make sure that we can make it do the most simple task. Usually, that is called the Hello World program, right? Hello World is the first program that we want our Python system or any sort of programming environment to say. This dates back to the World Wide Web back in the 90s, possibly even late 80s, when people just wanted to publish something to their website or their web page, just simply saying hello. Hello to the world, because it's the World Wide Web. So let's take a look at that with basically the simplest of Python statements. This is called the print statement. So all I need to do is, in lowercase, type in the word print, and then in parentheses and quotations, we can have it say whatever we want. So right here, my message is hello world. It's got quotations around it. We're going to learn the significance of that later. And then make sure that you have a set of parentheses wrapped around that message. All right. So we're just going to click run, and look at that. Our program says what we want it to say. All right. We can change this. We can say coding is fun, and it'll say that. You can change this message to whatever you want. Have it say your name, or have it say maybe a cute little message to your audience or anybody else who might be eventually watching what you're doing. All right. So if we want our program to show up on a separate line, right? Subscribe to my channel, right? If we run this, it's all in one line. But let's say I want to get creative, right? Maybe I'm thinking, well, what if I did, oh, that's not right, right? I just press enter to go to the next line. We can't really do that in Python. We can't just say hop to the next line, hop to the next line, hop to the next line. There are methods and techniques to do it, but since this is our first lesson, let's just use what we have to try to solve that problem. So I'm going to get rid of most of this text. I'm going to print. I have to use my quotes. Subscribe to print my print channel. And now when we run this, oh, look at that. It was able to put everything onto the next page and the next line on each of those. So that was pretty neat. All right, this is our first little micro lesson. So in our next lesson, we're going to learn some additional techniques, possibly play with capitalization of our stuff, possibly adding some extra features to a print statement so that we can do some pretty kind of creative and clever and logical problem-solving things with some other techniques within the programming language. All right, so we'll see you in the next chapter. All right, hey folks, welcome back. So if we take a look what we have here, we were able to make print statements happen, we're able to make some text show up, and we're even able to put them on separate lines. The next thing I want to show you is we're going to go back to that hello world example. Notice I capitalized the H and the W on here and nothing else, because the next thing I want to show you is how to kind of play around with capitalization functions. What these do is they're little tags that we can add to the end of our messages, and they can kind of adjust how our body of text operates. So first off, if you notice, I'm going to go between the quotation and the parentheses. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say dot upper with its own set of parentheses. You could probably guess what this does. It's going to uppercase our entire word, right? See how we got hello world? Almost looks like it's yelling at us, all right? Well, if we have upper, print, this is a test. I could probably say dot lower, and if I run this, oh, look at that. The line below it was all snapped to lowercase, right? And to kind of prove that these are actually behaving the way we want, if we remove these two things and run it, oh, okay, everything kind of snapped back to its natively written form. So that allows us to kind of mess around with uppercase and lowercase tricks. What we can also do is, just like a book, when we write out the title and maybe an essay or anything like that, or even like a series of proper nouns, if I say dot title and run this, oh, check that out. This actually snapped the first letters of each word into an uppercase form. All right. Now there's one other last thing. I usually find this to be a pretty funny thing. This is not necessarily something that we probably would find great use in, but if I print, let's say these are 4 words, and I say dot swapcase. Again, you could probably guess what this is, right? None of these titles are meant to be deceptive. They're supposed to be very readable and very understandable. When I run this, it actually takes each of the letters that are capitalized and snaps them to lowercase, and then it does the opposite for anything else, right? H-E-S-E, oh, those all got capitalized. So capitalizations, they're kind of fun to play around with this, but also, if you realize, if you're running, let's say, a website and you have a mailing list, right? You send emails to all of your clients. Sometimes, when people go to write things into your forms, they will write their name in all lowercase letters, or they'll write their name in all uppercase letters. And if we look back at print, right? Let's say I write that dot title. This also will snap it to a very formal way of writing things. So we can already see our first use cases here. Sometimes we will use dot title or some sort of similar action or behavior to make sure that when we send out a letter, and it says, "Dear Brian Fadouk," it's not writing it in all capital letters. That can be kind of scary and intimidating. Imagine receiving a letter from your job and they write, "Dear Brian Fadouk," in all capital letters. That could be a little scary or intimidate people when really what they're trying to do is just offer you a car refinancing or a new insurance policy. In a similar light, look at this lowercase. Imagine if you received a letter that wrote your name uncapitalized. You kind of feel disrespected in that regard. And we're in this situation where, you know what? We can just make sure that every message sent out to every one of our potential customers is put through some sort of system like title that makes sure that their information shows up properly. All right? So that's something we want to keep in mind as well. The uses of these, swapcase, I think you're just being silly in that situation, but you never know. It's kind of fun, it's kind of neat, it's kind of a neat thing that you can goof around with. So those are capitalization functions. All right. Next up, we're going to be looking at the length of an object, so we can actually tell Python to count how many letters or characters or numbers or symbols or anything else like that appear in a string of text. And remember that word. We will learn more about that word later on in this course. All right, see you in the next section. All right, folks, so we're in the third section of our print statements. So the entire idea of this next section is basically putting Python to work to count the number of characters or objects that are within a string of text, or many other things. You'll notice that this will come into play a little bit later in our course as well. But if we look here, this is the standard alphabet, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. We know that there are 26 letters. And if I run this as a print statement, it'll just display it. But what if, instead, I tell my print statement I would like to print the len, parentheses, and go all the way over to here, and close the parentheses. What I'm asking for is the length, or the number of characters that go through here. Now, if you know your elementary alphabet, you should know that this result gives you 26. All right. And we can do this with anything that we want. I can print, no quotations yet, len, parentheses, and in quotes, just letter A. And that should give us 1. All right. I can also print the len of hi, Mom. All right. So looking at this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 characters, right? Maybe. Let's see. Oh, 7. Because remember, right here, 1, 2, 3. Oh, the space. 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Spaces also count as characters in a string of text or in a sequence of letters that make up some sort of message or word. If I add another space and run it, well, that number jumps up to 8. All right. There are some tricky things that you can do later on as we learn more and more things, but understanding and being able to extract the length of an object is actually pretty nice. All right. So let's go into a kind of real world example, right? Let's say that we have a jeweler, right? A person who creates jewelry, and they basically want to create a system that without flaw counts the number of letters in an engraving process. All right. Now, in this situation, just for now, we are going to look at a situation where spaces also count. So I'm a jeweler, right? I want to find the len of whatever message. I love you, exclamation. Now I can realize, okay, this is 11 letters, right? That can be used, or characters or spaces. So when I run it into my machine, if I charge $10 per letter, well, I know that I can multiply the 10 times the 11, and if I had a calculator, it would tell me $110. This comes in handy in case you run into very, very, very long messages. And again, later on, as we look into different aspects of code, we'll probably explore situations where we have an object that wants to actually write a message on the screen. But what happens if that message, see my hands, keeps going off the screen? You don't want that situation to happen, so instead you put one line up here and one line down here. You can figure out the length of the message. You could make your text smaller, or you could put half your text up here and half your text below it as kind of like a second line. Again, these are some things that with advanced coding techniques, advanced things that we learn, we'll be able to play around with some neat stuff. All right, let's keep building up this foundation. We have 2 more things that we want to do. The next one that we want to look at is the count function. So we're going to actually tell Python to count how many times it sees something. All right, so see you in the next one. Okay, so we're on the last major piece of this tutorial. The last thing that I want to teach you is the ability to count something. What we can do, just similar to the titles, capitalization, features, all those things, what we can also do is how many times does A show up? Dot, let me just extend this a little bit. And we're going to put in count and quotations and parentheses, not S, the letter A. All right. On this situation, it only shows up 2 times, right? The A here and the A here, kind of self-referencing in a way. So we're able to count things, right? I can also print, I like cats. Cats are cool. Right? We can also have it count the number of times it sees the letter cat, or the word cat. All right. In this case, also 2, right? It also can count cats. All right. You can also do something interesting and count spaces. Oh, look at that. It can even count the number of times that there is a space in this code. So this is pretty cool. You could do some pretty neat things. You could print an entire message of, let's say, the Declaration of Independence and see how many times a certain word shows up, like America, or freedom, or people, or we, or the. Like, you could show any amount of counting that you wanted within your items. Keep in mind, though, when you print something, right? Let's say we go back to counting, let's say, cats are cool, I like cats, dot count. I want to count the word cat. Why am I only getting 1? This one is pretty obvious, right? It counts C-A-T. But if we look at this guy over here, we capitalize the C. So capitalization does not work in terms of the counting situation. However, if you're clever and you try a specific method where you could modify all of the capitalization of a message, hint, hint, you could probably count a specific type of that. All right, so that's for you to try to figure out if you can. But the count function is pretty neat because it can count any number of objects or things within a message, so we can try to figure out, exactly how many times something occurs. All right. Another nice little hint that I want to give you is in the next section we'll learn about some mathematics operations. If you are getting numbers pushed out through here, I'm wondering if you could take that engraving challenge, right? One letter, $10 per one letter put onto a piece of jewelry, and you can figure out the total cost. I wonder if you could figure out that cost and then subtract the number of times that you count a space. Perhaps you want your jewelry example to allow the user to remove the spaces because, hey, there's no real engraving going on there. It's no application of skill or talent or tools or machinery. It's basically just, skipping over and moving slightly over to the right to make sure that that shows up. So that's kind of the idea of count. We can use count to count the number of objects or instances, and something shows up inside of a string of text. All right, cool. We got one little tiny last bonus unit. It's fun, it's neat, it's nothing that we necessarily need to know, but since it's within the realm of print statements, I'd love to show you that anyway. All right, we'll hop on to that last piece and then we'll call it a chapter or a unit. All right, so I just wanted to show you this pretty neat technique. By putting specific types of character codes, you can actually adjust what the print statement looks like. Now, this will not work on every single system, but it works on most of the ones that I have tried. So you can kind of create, different types of text that can show up as green or red or, blue or bold or underline, and you can also snap it back to that good old normal system as well. All right, one thing to keep in mind about this is if I were to just run this and then below I were to print hello, oh, look at that. We are actually like stuck in this red text version, right? This little strange command, I'm willing to admit this is an incredibly strange command, basically creates an override for the rest of the program. So you can run one of these and then you can get permanent results. Well, you can change it to normal ones, or you can reset it back on here, right? I'm going to print the word hello too. And now when I run it, see how it kind of snaps it back. So you can kind of create like a rule or like a policy for the program where it won't change until something else changes how it works. All right. So I'll leave these right here just in case you want to like pause the video and read through, what they're talking about and what they're saying. But red text, blue text, bold text, underline text, and then that last piece snaps it back to its old original form. So kind of some neat stuff. It's pretty fun, it's pretty neat, it's nothing that you would necessarily need to have, but it's kind of nice if maybe your errors came up in red if you detected a situation that you don't want, or maybe you have green text when things are good, or if like you pass a certain thing. You have blue text, you have bold text, you could bold things. That might be nice to have something stand out if you're printing a lot of stuff. As you see throughout the course, if you ever see an opportunity to sprinkle this stuff back in, come back to this video and also leave a comment how you are using these, because I would love to see actual use cases for this. All right, so that's the end of print statements. Hopefully it's not anything too complicated, too wild. Learn by building. Have fun, create things, build things, make things interesting, weird, wacky, wild. Just build. The more you build, the more you'll get comfortable with these things. And then as you learn new skills, it's so much easier to just cross-integrate all of your other skills into it. All right, so that is our first unit, basic print statements. Nothing too fancy yet. In our next unit, we're going to learn about mathematics, just to kind of understand how the quote-unquote built-in calculator, as I like to call, works within Python. We'll learn all the symbols and all the things for operations. We'll learn a couple weird, neat things, and after that, we'll keep moving on to new units and keep building up our skills. All right, see you in the next video.